High in the atmosphere, a predator spots its target. It folds its wings, tucks its body into a tight teardrop shape, and gives itself over to gravity. This is the stoop. The Peregrine Falcon accelerates past 240 miles per hour during this vertical freefall. If a human were somehow suspended at that speed, facing the direct force of the wind, the air pressure would overwhelm our respiratory muscles. We would be completely unable to exhale, let alone draw a breath. The Falcon solves this physical barrier with a highly specialized adaptation. Just inside the nostril, there is a small, bony structure known as the nasal tubercle. This tubercle acts as a biological baffle. When incoming high-speed air hits it, the air is forced into a controlled spiral vortex, dampening the intense pressure and dissipating the kinetic energy. It allows the bird to breathe continuously during its extreme descent, a mechanism so effective that engineers studied it when designing the inlet cones of modern supersonic jet engines. As the velocity increases, the Falcon shifts its aerodynamic profile. It brings its wings closer to its body and cups the leading edges of its feathers. This minimizes drag and channels turbulence away from its frame, maintaining stability at a speed that would tear other birds apart. Millions of years of selection have refined every bone and feather to withstand mechanical forces that would shred other raptors mid-flight. That resilience translated to geographic conquest. The Peregrine Falcon expanded its territory to span every continent on Earth, with the sole exception of Antarctica. Yet in the 1960s, a strange trend emerged in the eastern United States. These predators began disappearing from the sky. The collapse was startling in its speed. Historic cliff eyries, nesting sites that had been occupied by generations of falcons for decades, were suddenly and completely abandoned. This created a paradox. A predator with no natural enemies and a territory that spans the globe was suddenly vanishing from its own home. To understand their vulnerability, we first have to look at their endurance. The North American peregrine begins its year high in the extreme northern environments of the Arctic and Canada. As winter approaches, they embark on a massive migration. Some populations travel over 6,000 miles south, crossing multiple borders to reach their wintering grounds along the coastlines of Peru and the broader South America. Along this journey, they must hunt. When they stoop on a target, usually a duck, pigeon, or smaller songbird, they don't always grab it. Instead, they curl their feet into a tight fist and strike their prey mid-flight, using the immense kinetic impact of the dive to knock it right out of the sky. Because their diet consists almost entirely of other birds, and because no other animal hunts them, the peregrine occupies the absolute peak of the avian food web. Their position at the top made them untouchable in physical combat, but ecologically, it meant that anything consumed by the millions of birds below them would inevitably be funneled directly into the falcon's own body. The crisis for the species occurred within the safety of the nest. Peregrines form lifelong monogamous bonds, returning to the same ledges year after year to hollow out simple dirt depressions called scrapes, where they lay 2 to 5 eggs. Following World War II, a synthetic agricultural pesticide known as DDT was aggressively deployed across the global landscape to control insect populations. This diagram illustrates the process of biomagnification. Insects absorb trace amounts of the chemical. When small birds ate thousands of those insects, the toxin didn't dissipate. It accumulated in their fatty tissues, exponentially multiplying in concentration as it moved up the ecological ladder. By the time the peregrine falcon consumed its prey, it was absorbing massive, highly concentrated doses of a DDT byproduct called DDE. This chemical specifically targeted the bird's reproductive systems, shutting down normal calcium production in the females. The toxin didn't poison the adult falcons directly. Instead, it produced eggshells so thin and starved of calcium that when the parents sat down to incubate them, the eggs were simply crushed. The biological machine of the adult falcon remained unbroken, but with its reproductive cycle severed, evolutionary adaptations built over millions of years were useless against a rapid chemical disruption. This chart maps the devastating result. By 1970, the eastern United States population crashed to exactly 0 breeding pairs. The turning point came in 1972 when the United States banned DDT. Scientists and falconers immediately launched a captive breeding program to rebuild the population. Biologists utilized a falconry technique involving hacking boxes, protective enclosures that allowed captive-reared chicks to be fed through hidden chutes until they were old enough to fly and hunt independently. As they began releasing these young birds, conservationists noticed a structural loophole in the urban landscape. To a peregrine, a skyscraper ledge is structurally identical to a sheer natural cliff, and a city filled with pigeons provides a limitless food supply. The falcon found salvation by mapping its ancient hunting instincts directly onto a synthetic environment engineered by humans. The recovery effort worked. In 1999, the peregrine falcon was officially removed from the endangered species list, and today, tens of thousands of them thrive across the continent. Millions of years of evolutionary engineering were nearly neutralized by a single decade of invisible chemistry. But that same capacity for rapid, sweeping change means humanity also possesses the scientific capability to consciously correct its own mistakes. The survival of the peregrine stands as a reminder of our capacity for ecological damage and the conscious effort required to bring a dominant predator back from the edge.